Hello, we are Coping Life Talk, and I'm Dr. Lydia Istomina. Today we are hosting Amy Williams, and as you see, she is Amy Williams Academy. That's quite intriguing. And our regular co-host is Scott Kiddle. So we welcome you today, everybody who watches us every Saturday at 5 p.m. We are live already third year. We crossed 120 podcasts, and we hosted people from all over the world, actually, from across the ocean. So, Amy, we are very excited. So, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to connect with your audience. I'm Amy Williams of Amy Williams Academy. I'm an educator coach and a family coach. I also consult with schools and do observations in schools all over the place. So my background is as a dance movement therapist and expressive arts therapist, and I came kind of in the side door to education. So I've been working primarily with Montessori schools, schools with all sorts of different approaches, Waldorf, Reggio, traditional play-based. But my sweet spot is that early childhood, children from infancy through kindergarten and into early elementary age.
That's wonderful. And your background is very impressive. And the topic that you will be talking today about is no less impressive and intriguing. Flip the script. That's already enough, but oh no, we can decide what we say to our children. Really, that is very, very interesting, and I'm looking forward to hear about that, because we know how it is in families now. But also, right away, I will introduce the subtopics for your talk today. So one will be rewriting toxic messages we received as children. And the second part will be managing difficult behaviors with respect and clarity. So flip the script. And before we begin, I want to say something about you too. So I've learned that in your academy, you invite not only teachers, you are a leadership coach, but you also invite parents. And the focus is you teach both parents and educators how to be the best persons possible in the lives of the children we love. So that is very, very important in this world, especially when we have so much problems between parents and children, abuse and school incidents. So please, let's begin with just overall. What is that flip the script?
Flip the script. What does that mean anyway, right?
Right.
Well, we all grew up with important adults in our lives, whether they were our direct parents or family members, teachers, other people that were older than us, had power, had impact in our lives when we were children. We are influenced by all of them. And often the messages that we received from those important adults get absorbed, and the words that we hear become the voices that we hear, that we say to ourselves as we get older. So if we hear messages from our important adult that we are capable and that we are we can do things that are hard, that we're strong, we're resilient, we're, insert adjective here, that becomes a voice that we say to ourselves, like, yeah, I can do this. I am capable. I can do that. And we also absorb the messages that we need to be quiet, or we cry too much, or we talk too much, or we're too energetic, or stop doing that. Why did you do that? Right? So we absorb those messages as well. So the beauty of it is that we can decide, okay, after some observation and some self-reflection, we can decide, yeah, I don't want to say that anymore. I don't want to say that to myself, and I don't want it coming out of my mouth to the children that I love. So how can I be the best person that I can for the children that I love, either in my classroom or in my home or in my community? But first, you got to take a look and take a listen to, well, what are you saying to yourself? And where did you hear that? Who said that to you? And what you would like to hear and what you would rather say. So we can take that script and flip it. And instead of stop talking, we could say, I have a lot to say. Instead of you're so stubborn, we could say, I'm really persistent. right? So there's a way that we could take a look at what we heard and shift it and change it to be the messages that we want to say to our children and to ourselves.
I'm listening very carefully, yes, because it is important for us to understand the psyche of the children. And what do they hear when we think we say just simple parenting thing, or what we as educators say at school, sometimes in that busy life. And plus we were trained like this. That's what we've heard from our parents, right?
Right.
So we don't understand what truly children hear when we say, stop talking, right? So okay, that is very good. Okay, so let's flip the script. And so it seems like simply you rephrase the same thing, the same message that you want to convey, but you say it in a different way. That's what it is, flipping the script, right?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. And there are some messages, Dr. Lydia, that we want to eliminate 100%. Like, I don't want to ever say to my child that they're stupid or that they're an idiot, or some phrases that we may hear that really are, we don't want to just flip them. We want to cut and edit, right? And recreate. What do we want to say? What do we want that my child, my students, to say to themselves as they get older when I'm not around? I want my daughters to say to themselves, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that when somebody asks them to do something that they don't want to do, or I don't want them to do, right? I want that internal message to be strong and clear, supportive, respectful, kind, right? That's what I want as myself as a parent and myself as a teacher and a teacher coach. You know, the words we say to each other can become our inner messages as well. You know, Dr. Maria Montessori, said something, which said a lot of brilliant things, but one that sticks with me a lot, especially when we're talking about how we speak to children and what we say to children, is the idea of that children have an absorbent mind and they absorb everything. So not only the words that we say and the script that we might want to flip or edit or do whatever to, but not just the words, but our body, our tone, our volume, right? The context behind what we're saying. The children absorb all of that. And what is really wild is that when our words say one thing and our body and our tone and our volume say another, that's a mixed message. They're going to believe what our body is saying, all the nonverbal. So if we say, I'm fine, everything's fine. Am I fine?
No.
You're going to believe this part and not my words, right?
That's very true. Thank you. That's a very good explanation, I think, and it's helpful. But also, for example, and it seems like you don't even talk about physical abuse, since it's now definitely prohibited. But in the old times, I've heard that parents, for example, considered showing love after punishing a child. For example, they will spank a child and then hug a child. So that's a gesture, loving gesture, and they felt like it's compensating, and though they showed how incorrect maybe the behavior was, but they follow with the loving gesture. Is it appropriate? Would you support something like that? And how to flip that script that is not allowed actually by law?
I have strong feelings and opinions about that, and I've got experience about that spanking and hitting a child, being aggressive to a child, whether we have an intention to hurt or not, is still violence. And do we want to teach children that this is how you deal with things? When somebody does something wrong, you're going to hit them. Is that what we want them to do going forward? That's the way we deal with conflict, is somebody hits somebody and somebody gets it. And then that's one piece. And then the other piece goes to what you were originally saying, you know, and connecting it to the mixed message. You know, I love you and I'm going to smack you. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to spank you because I love you. That's a really mixed message. So what will they believe? They will believe the hit and not necessarily the I love you. I love you. This is why I'm going to do this.
So what
Doesn't
they will remember, you say, not the loving gesture, but they will remember what preceded that.
they will remember that a person that is a powerful person in their life that they love and they depend on to keep them safe and happy and healthy hit them. They will
Very
remember.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very helpful, very helpful. Because, you know, talking to different parents myself, I found out that sometimes it's hard to convince them otherwise when they share that, no, I have to spank my child, even now, these days, because this is how my mother raised me. And
Right.
young people, and I thought, like, wait a second, you cannot. It's abuse. No, it's not abuse. It's parenting, they say. But so that's very helpful. But again, flip the script. We can decide what we say to our children. At first, I took it as, for example, now parents are afraid, they're paranoid of what they
Mhm.
say to children because coming to America, I'm from Russia, from
Mhm.
actually Eastern Europe, I've learned now from my ancestry that in my country, in my culture, what parents say is authority. And of course, teenagers argue. I was very argumentative myself. But at the same time, parents have a right to say what they think.
Yes.
This is incorrect. You need to straighten up. But
Mhm.
here, to my shock, I've learned that children talk back to their parents, and they say, "Oh, I will call the police. I will tell that this is abuse. I will report to the social services." But so that's what I thought, honestly, that you say that we can decide what we say to our children. So as a parent,
Mhm.
instead of being afraid. So, but it's not about that,
Right.
correct?
True. I think what comes to mind as you're talking is cultural expectations, and the way that we grow up in our families. What was the expectation? What is the role of the adult? The role of the adult may be to, what I say goes, and I'm responsible for teaching you. So I exist in a more adult centered leadership style with my children. So I'm the adult, so what I say goes. My father was very adult centered, and he was in the army in World War II as sergeant. So he said, as long as your feet are under my table, you're going to do as I say.
Yeah.
And that was like, yes, sir, whatever you say, yes. So that was the expectation in my particular family culture, and every culture has a different nuance of what is the role of the adult, what is the role of the child. Some families might say, absolutely, you may not shut your door when you're a teenager. Nope, there's not a question. Absolutely, you will not talk to your mother that way or your father that way, right? So there are cultural norms that are at play, right? And every family gets to choose those, right? I'm here to say there's another way. If you find that you may spank or hit your child in a maybe with the best of intentions, like, well, I got spanked and I'm okay, right? You might have that thought going on in your head, and then I want us to think about, but if there's another way that you can connect with your child and build that relationship so that nobody has to get hit. There's so much violence in the world. Do we really want to participate that in our own home when our home is supposed to be safe and full of love and joy and opportunity and inspiration, and not necessarily fear?
And that fear is exactly what we will talk about in our first part of the podcast, rewriting toxic messages we received as children. So it
Mhm.
seems like, for example, I'm not saying that you had toxic messages, but since your father was a disciplinarian and you
There
were
were a
saying,
few.
yes, sir. Yeah. My
Mhm.
mom was not just a disciplinarian, she was physical.
Mhm.
And the messages we heard, that's what I was very interesting in how to rewrite those toxic messages, for example, especially when parents are gone. My mom is gone now,
Mhm.
and gradually, of course, luckily God gave her a long life, and taking care of her, I had to reconcile with those memories. And I tried to talk to her, and I said, "Mom, why did you say things like this to me?" And of course, she was defensive, and she would say, "Why would you remember just bad things? Can you remember something good?" And of
Right.
course, I did. But you see, those messages, like for example, "You are nothing. You're just a dust. I gave you life. I can take you back. I can take it back." And so,
Yeah.
and she
That's
did
a
it.
classic.
I brought you into this world. I can take you out. Oh yeah, that's
Right,
classic.
but I
Comic.
took it literally. I'm a very impressive,
Yes.
easily to be impressed, and so I
Right.
was scared. And so
Sure.
and many children live in fear. So when we mentor in our local elementary school here in St. Joseph, Missouri, I've talked to quite a few children who are very scared, who don't have a full family, who don't even have not just a bedroom, they don't have a bed. They sleep on the
Mhm.
floor.
Yeah.
They don't know who is their father, and having different males in their family. And of course, um, hopefully it is
Mhm.
safe, but sometimes it's not. So, and they grow up with those words and gestures that you described and become
Mhm.
adults. So
Mhm.
how do we teach children to not erase those toxic messages, but what you suggest, rewrite them? How do we
Right.
do that?
Right. The first step to that is observation and noticing, like taking a pause. And sometimes it's when you're talking to your child when you are upset. Another word for that is dysregulated. When you are
Mm.
an emotion is taking over and you are not in a place of calm, confident, certain space as the important adult, right? So when we are full of emotion, it's easy for those words to come out, and then afterwards we might think, oh, I said that thing, I said it again. There's my great Aunt Edna's voice coming right out of my mouth. Or I said I was never going to say that to my child. And when I'm upset, it will come out because that's what's familiar to us, right? That's
Right.
like deep in
Yeah.
the brain. That's what's familiar. So when we can practice being in a state of calm as much as possible, when things are going sideways there in our living room or there in our classroom, when we can make sure that, okay, I need to drink some water, or I'm going to take a break and I'm going to walk over here, or I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back, right? As long as things are safe and you can take a break, regulate yourself, and then come back, those toxic messages are less likely to come out, right?
I
So
have a
when that,
question.
oh, sure. Oh,
I
go
have a
ahead.
question before you continue. For example, so I took it literally, like it is. Rewriting toxic messages applies to children, what they hear in their childhood. But when you said the teacher or parent needs to step out of the room,
Mhm.
collect herself or himself, come back for not
Mhm.
saying that. But also, my question is, do we as adults need to also rewrite those toxic messages we received as children? For not
Absolutely.
repeat. Okay, so yeah, when you have time, could you please speak a little on that topic as well?
Sure. I think that's kind of where I'm coming from right now. So when we, as the adults, hear those messages in our heads that we learned from whoever, those important adults, we have to first know what they are, right?
Okay.
Like one of my messages is this: look ashamed.
Mm.
Oh, and that was a hard one. So when I hear myself say that either to myself or I'm about to say it to a child, or I might think that, then that's the moment when we flip it. And when
Okay.
we stop
So,
ourselves and we can rewrite it as the important adult.
so flip the script. This is where we flip it. Okay.
Yeah, so that the child doesn't internalize a message that they're going to have to flip when they're a parent or a teacher or an important adult in a child's life.
That's what it is. So that's
Yeah.
for both. Wonderful. This is helpful. Scott, do you have any question at this point?
No, that makes all the sense in the world. It really does.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
let's continue on rewriting toxic messages we received as children.
Right. Well, I
Very
want to say, I
interesting.
want to point out, oh, yes, it sounds really simple. It's simple. Yes. Is it easy? No. There is absolutely a necessary component of making a decision that I don't want this to be. I don't want my child to have that voice inside their head, right? Because that what children hear is what they say to themselves and they say to others, right?
Right. And so the violence that we see around us today, is it in any way impacted by those toxic messages we received as children?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
So
Yes.
then what you say, it even has an impact on the overall society if we learn how to rewrite those toxic messages as children. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
Okay.
imagine this, doctor. If our leaders, if our national leaders, and I'm not going to get political, but if everybody at the UN,
And it's okay. In our Coping Life Talk, you can say anything you want.
Let it rip.
great. But I'm wondering if we all had permission, we gave ourselves permission to do the work, to observe and do some self-reflection and shift the way that we speak to others, and not just speaking with our words, but you remember body, voice, tone, volume, and all that, how much more peaceful we would be, because humans want to be heard and they want to be seen and respected. In addition to that, we want to be loved. Right now, I'm not saying that everybody in Congress needs to hug each other and all that, because I don't know, that would be great. But coming from a place of respect and saying to someone honestly how you would like to be spoken to yourself, even in those moments of extreme disagreement. So
And extreme stress, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So so that's Congress. But in your home, it's like a smaller piece of that, right? So
microcosm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it will carry on and have ripple effects. So the way I'm speaking to my child will be their voice when they go to school. Ideally, they will speak that way to other people, right? Yes, there are outside influences. When children move from the first plane of development, which goes through about the kindergarten age, and that's very literal. So probably when you heard those messages from your mom that you were going to be dust and you thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be dust. That time in that first plane of development, the child is very literal, right? So if you say to a child, I'm going to take away all your toys, or you're not going to get anything from Santa Claus, they will absolutely believe, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get anything from Santa Claus, right? And now when children move to that second plane, they can understand more complex ideas, and they can move from the concrete to the abstract, right? So once they grow and mature, you're speaking with them in more abstract ways, they have more of an understanding, right? So they have some life experience behind them, and they've got the brain connections to understand, okay, not all presidents, but maybe
10.
Yeah. Or she's just mad. And that's what
children conclude sooner or later. Oh, she's just mad. Well, that's an interesting, I think, observation on many levels. First of all, beginning with political leaders, because I think the safest way is to bring the president of Russia and discuss his gestures, his language, his eyes, and how he talks to people. And then you're right, the ripple effect in families is enormous. And then it goes from the president to his, of course, surrounding. Then from surrounding, people take it home, on TV, on internet. And then this is how the majority of Russians now speaks in social media. Because people...
Go ahead. I'll make a comment thereafter.
Oh, no, go ahead. I just wanted to say that this is how the very cultured country, Russians, are very well read. They are raised on reading Pushkin, Leo Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, modern authors, poetry. And then you read what you see on the social media. It is just absolutely not just disappointing, it's scary. But how does it start? It starts from the top down. And
Mhm.
so when the president says on TV that I will flush you in the toilet, and this is not just his style, it's a jargon known in prisons. So the
Mm.
president uses the language that convicts use against of each other. And
Oh,
imagine when he tells to his enemies on the TVs things like that, children adopt that. Parents adopt that, and they might say it at home. I will flush you in toilet, you know. So just
Mhm.
very, very, very violent and rude language. So, Scott, you wanted to comment on that.
Yes, so you mentioned social media, and of course that comes very close to home for Americans, if not anyone on the
Mhm.
planet who uses social media. We
Mhm.
find today very toxic language and attitudes, lots of poison and vitriol that people seem to find very easy to blast out at perfect strangers.
Sure enough.
You know, like
Yeah.
a Facebook post or any
Mhm.
number of social media. It's just
Mhm.
shocking that people can be as uncivil toward one another that they
Yeah.
wouldn't dream of saying face to face.
Sure.
So does
And
that
you know,
come from the messages that we received as in our childhood?
oh gosh, that. Ooh, you just got real deep on us right here.
Sorry about
I think
that.
no, it's good. I love it. Um, uh, yeah, and I think that the modality and the of social media takes away so much of the nuance of the message, right?
Yes.
Remember earlier we were
Right.
talking about the words and the body and the tone and the volume. All those come together for the message. So if I'm just putting out a quick tweet, those are just words. So there's no tone really there. There's no body to either lean in or lean back or cross or open, right? There's not that informs the message. The words are really just 7% of the message, right? Our body is more, the tone and volume is 30 some percent, and our body carries more than 50% of the full message.
Very true.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So when you're online and you're just adding words, then it's just that sliver of the message. And yes, we can add emojis and use particular words that might carry more specific meaning.
Right.
Yes, and that'll get us closer to the message. But we don't get the whole message. And it's so easy to misunderstand. Right. So that's one
Right.
piece of that puzzle. And then another piece of that puzzle, and I'm sure you're thinking about this, and so are your listeners, that we're coming off of a time where there's a little thing happening, and we're toward the end of it, but the pandemic, right? When so much isolation happened and families had to work from home and children had to be online for school, or they had to be in the other room watching a movie or watching their iPad, and oh yeah, I forgot to put on parental controls. Right. So children are consuming so much of that. And I see it on the playground, and I hear it from educators and families that I'm talking with globally, that has had a huge impact. Right. So children on our playground, I think it was last summer. It was just after the movie Squid Games came out, and there was a young 4.5-year-old, and they were playing. I said, so tell me, what are you playing? And he said, we're playing Squid Games. And I thought to myself, okay, before I freak out, I'm going to say, so what do you know about Squid Games? That's always a great question to ask.
Yeah.
I found out, oh, my older brother has that on his iPad and he watches it, but I'm not supposed to watch it. And then he carries on playing whatever they were playing. I thought, okay. But it was important to let his family know, hey, check it out. You might want to take a look at your parental controls on your devices. And of course, the family was like, oh my God, they were mortified. I can't believe they did all the things that I'm sure they were supposed to do to just kind of lock that down. It's so easy for children who have a device to move away from Paw Patrol and then they're in some sort of game or video that is not what the important adult intended for them to be
Yeah.
on. Yeah. And it comes out, and then they notice when it comes out in their play, right? Like, oh, what are you
yes.
playing? You're playing Zombie Apocalypse. Oh, tell me what you know about Zombie Apocalypse, right?
Mm.
And it's interesting that it still falls under the first topic of our podcast, rewriting toxic messages, because in a way, we know that our children receive those toxic messages not only from us parents, not only from teachers, not only from church leaders or neighborhood community, but also from the screen. And it could be like you talked about politicians, but also games, movies, any exchange even with friends on the social media. And we know how so many children took their lives because they've been bullied online. So then this digital bullying is a topic that is maybe fallen under our second topic, like managing difficult behaviors. But how? But so again, how do you write those toxic messages that in your particular example, a child already received from that game and parents noticed a little too late? Right? So it's already in the brain. How should I, as a parent, deal with my child or grandchild if I notice that, oh, the child is confused, the child is maybe angry, the child maybe now questions my authority, why mom didn't you tell me ever what I saw? So how do you rewrite that?
Sure. Sometimes we may be on the receiving end of those messages that are already embedded in their mind and in their brain, and they come out of the mouth of our children when they are dysregulated, right? So they're not thinking logically about, okay, how can I get my point across and still be kind and respectful, right? Or how can I clearly communicate in a way that's going to work, or in the way that I know we want to be together in our household, right? So when they're dysregulated, it might come out of their mouth. Just recently I got called an idiot teacher. I thought, okay, cool. I'm not an idiot teacher, but interesting. So I let a pause happen, let that emotion ride and fully express itself. And then when I saw the child was a little more regulated, I said, most people don't like to be called idiot teacher. You can call me by my name. Right. So you give them an option of what you can do. Sure. Right. Most people don't like being called a jerk or an idiot or whatever. You can, and then tell them what they can do. Followed by, in this particular circumstance, I followed it with a question. I'm so curious, where have you heard that word? Has somebody called you that before? And he shared that he'd seen it on TV. Like, oh, interesting. Tell me more. And then tell me more is a great opener to hear, like, where's this message coming from, right? Wow. So that's important information for the adult to have, right? Where is that message coming from?
Go ahead.
Well, followed up by, teaching to that skill that might be skewed, or Ross Greene calls it a lagging skill, right? So they may not have the skill to express, I'm so frustrated with you, teacher, because you won't let me go through the gate, right? Yeah, it's like, yeah, you got some things to put away. So as soon as you put your things away, we can go inside, right? First that, then this. But he was mad. So how can I teach into the skill of, you absolutely can be angry and can be mad, and you can be mad at me, right? Here's how to be mad. And you might have to teach how to be angry. Right? It might, I noticed you're so mad you really want to hit or call me idiot teacher. I know, I see that, I get it, right? Janet Lansbury talks about first validating the feeling, right? Naming the feeling. You seem so frustrated, or wow, I could see that's so annoying, right? So right there, you make a connection, followed by, I won't let you hit. I won't let you bite. And that sends the message of, I got you. You're having a big emotion. And this is more with younger children. And, this particular child was a first grader, right? still young, right? So the message of, I got you. And now it's time to teach into that skill of what to do when you're mad and you really want to say you're an idiot teacher, or I want to punch you right in the face, or whatever it is that the child may want to do. We can give some more options. When you're frustrated, you can do this. You could tell a true story. One time I felt so mad. I wanted to hit somebody. I wanted to say these things. And here's what I did. I took 3 deep breaths, or I went for a run, or I made myself a cup of tea, or I did, and then say what it is that you do. And the hope is that we have skills ourselves, how to manage when we get really mad, right? Sometimes we're still learning. When I get mad, when somebody gets mad, they might say, I get mad, I want to punch something, and I do. So, I don't want my child to learn that. Okay, first, let's learn for yourself as the adult. What are your coping skills that are healthy and effective, right? Because humans get mad. They have all the range of emotions. So yes, have those emotions, feel them, because that's part of being human. Yeah. And when those emotions impact others, sometimes directly impact them, that's a no, I won't let you do that. Here's what else you can do. Here's what I did. Here's what some other kids have done, right? Through stories. You could tell stories through, the oral tradition just by telling a story, or there are loads of books out there with characters that have big emotions. There's a book, lots of books. I'm launching a few in just a few weeks that really highlight, how do I make a friend? How do I handle that big emotion? I could take 3 deep breaths. I can squeeze my hands together. I could do push-ups against the wall. I can carry something really heavy, right, to help myself regulate.
I'm reminded of Mr. Rogers. Ever the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood? One of the themes, oh my goodness, that guy. One of the themes that he often touched on was how children can deal with some of those big emotions.
Mm-hmm. The song, that classic song, what do you do with the mad that you feel so mad you could bite? Yeah.
Yeah. He was a master at that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you see the Mr. Rogers books right behind me? I was wondering.
Oh.
I thought I recognized some of those.
Yep. I do have a class for teachers and for families about, it's called Inspired by the Neighborhood, how to bring in the language that he used. The language he used is called Fredish, kind of informally. Fredish. Oh, wow. Perfect, right? And there are steps to re-scripting similarly to Fred Rogers. He was notorious for rewriting and editing the script up until the time of, it's time to roll the cameras, Mr. Rogers. More edits, because
I'm just going to improv.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that might be frowned upon, but he wanted to make sure that the language he used was clear and direct and accessible by his audience, right? So we can go through the 9 steps of Fredish. I mean, I'd have to have my notes in front of me, but there's a way that you can get to it that offers reassurance and clarity and respect, which is what we want to get to as the important adults, right?
Lydia, maybe we should have her come back and walk us through Fredish.
Fredish.
Yeah, Fredish language. Honestly, I just for the first time hear the Fredish, the word, but I did hear about the Fred Rogers. So that's why I immediately connected. But yeah, I did see a few episodes and also heard a few of his sayings, and they're important because they are about how to have a healthy neighborhood, good relationships. But now I really want to know more and learn about that Fredish language. Thank you for bringing it up. And both seems like you connected right there on that topic. So question I have, when you started saying idiot teacher, and that's exactly what got my attention, because if somebody tells me something like that, I freeze. I
Ah,
would not do what you describe. You see, I will become indignant, and many people do, and I will say, "Well, I'm not talking to you anymore," and I know some amazing what you said, amazing, because I know there's a few teachers when, for example, tell me how would you advise a teacher in this classroom, because it was something similar, idiot teacher, or I will punch you in the nose or something, and
mhm,
so the teacher, imagine like let's say 30 plus students in a class, and the teacher starts talking to this child more, but then the rest of the class just become wild. And so the way I took it, and maybe correct me, I'm
mhm,
sure I'm wrong in your from your perspective, because I said no, you shouldn't do that, because you give him even more power. He was looking for power, he was looking for attention, and he
mhm,
got it.
mhm.
But another teacher simply grabbed the student and took him to the principal. And again, I thought, is it the good approach? So, what is a good approach when,
Mhm,
like in our second part of this podcast, we talk about how to manage difficult behavior, but
mhm,
with respect and clarity? For
mhm.
me, since I'm not a teacher and I'm scared of high school students, like you won't believe even how much.
Oh,
Um, but
I
I'm a
love
minister.
Mm.
I'm a minister, you see, besides everything. And so when I appeal to people's souls and I appeal to
Mhm,
people's hearts, and then I see a high school student who, not everybody, but misbehaving, unethical, rude, I
mhm,
shrink. And
mm.
I immediately like find something else, like
Going over here.
and
Hi.
Uh,
I delegate that child to another, for example, church leader, because I do not know how to
Why?
behave. See, so I don't know, because when I show respect and clarity
Mhm,
as
mhm.
an adult, I of course, an 11 parent, I expect in return
Right,
respect and clarity. So
right,
that's what I expect. But
right.
when I don't get it and I hear idiot pastor or idiot teacher, I shrink and I just escape.
Hi. Yeah.
God bless you. But so how do
and bye
I'm
bye.
just I admire you. And I admire
Oh,
all
well,
teachers
thank
who
you.
handle situations like this. I'm not equipped. All I can
Mm,
do is like you're an educator, you handle it. Because
right,
I can handle rudeness. In my
right,
in the church, and I just expect
right,
that people understand, but it does not, it's not the reality, it
right,
happens. So how
right,
would you please teach me and
right.
our listeners today, how do you handle bad behavior?
Well, wow, have so much that I want to say. One is thank you. And I got to tell you, I was having a real good day. So I was feeling regulated. I had food in my belly. I was hydrated. I was feeling good. So I was at the best point at that moment to handle you're an idiot teacher, because I am human too, just like everybody. And I could easily get to this, which that is my
Mm,
mother. And that is a
uh,
look that I got from my mother. That means you better pull yourself together, right? My father was a minister as well. So she was the powerful, wife of the preacher, right? So she was up on the choir loft playing the organ, and we were in the congregation. So it was all nonverbal. Oh, boy,
from
we
the
could
organ loft, right?
get home
We
from
can
my,
picture that.
100-pound, 110-pound tiny mother who was so incredibly powerful. But I digress. So when that thing does happen, you get called idiot teacher. Let's remember that which you give emotional attention to will continue, right?
Yes.
And that lots of educators say that. Joanne Nordling, who wrote the book Caring Discipline, speaks about that. Ross Green talks about that. Janet Lansbury talk about that. I want to talk about that more and more, because that which you give emotional attention to will continue. So if a behavior happens and you get jacked up and fired up, then that is a moment of connection, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what I
kind of, yeah. So as a little thought bubble, I want to help all of us remember, and your listeners and your viewers to remember, okay, that which I give emotional attention to will continue. This is attention-seeking behavior. So when we hear ourselves say, my child's just trying to get my attention, let's us just say, well, yes, they are, because we are humans who are built for connection, right? And so instead of saying they just want my attention, let's flip that script and say they're seeking connection. Right? So when a child is doing something and they're crawling in our lap while we're trying to be on a Zoom meeting or have a phone call, right? I think all of your listeners can say, yep, as soon as I pick up the phone, my kid is in my lap or asking for a snack or something, right? It happens every time. That's their bid for connection. And they're still figuring out how to do that. So we can teach into that lagging skill, to use a phrase from Ross Greene, lagging skills and unmet needs. The unmet need is the need of connection. And the lagging skill is, I don't know how to do that except climb on top of my person's head to get their attention, to get their connection, right? So above all of that, let's just talk about what you give emotional attention to will continue. Right? So if I got all jacked up and got upset and said, how dare you call me that? You may not do that. You may not call me that. You go over there right now, right? That's so much emotion that I'm giving to a child who had the lagging skill of expressing his frustration because I was in his way. He wanted to go inside. All of his classmates had gone inside and I was there to be like that mossy rock, because I'm a solid girl. It's hard to move me. Right? And it's like, yep, first put your things away and then we can go inside. So I was clearly trying really hard to not give big emotion or my own emotion to that. So calm, clear, not flat, but neutral. Like the matter of fact is this happens and then this happens. This, then this, then that. So clear, calm, neutral, and not getting my own emotions stirred up. Yeah, that sounds real simple, right? Easy to do.
No, it's actually not. No, it does not sound simple. Quite opposite, almost, because at one point you brought up I was in my best sort of condition. I ate, I'm not hungry, I'm not thirsty, I slept well, and still it hits. And of course, we cope differently when we will be not nourished well, we did not eat, we didn't sleep, maybe there is a conflict in the family. It's totally different scenario, right? But what you say, to have this contentment, to have this just strength and confidence and calmness, that takes a lot of training, but also self-discipline.
Yes.
Self-discipline.
And all of us as humans doing our own work to know what those messages are inside, because I've worked on that. Being called an idiot as a child was not something that I had internalized. So I was lucky or fortunate in that moment. Now, if it had been another human or another person, or if that was an internalized message that I was still trying to flip and a child called me that, it would have been harder for sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I think. I'm glad that you brought up as a first part of our podcast. We can decide what we say to our children. And also the second was rewriting toxic messages. Because I think if we cannot flip until we stop hearing in our brain that something like you an idiot told us by our parents. Because I think if you are wounded from your childhood and then as an adult, you did not process it. I'm not even saying that maybe you did not eat, maybe you're in the process of divorcing your husband or wife, and then you hear idiot teacher. Imagine that resonates and that effect that it makes on a teacher. Like, my mother was telling me this, now this child tells me that. Oh my goodness. So that's what I think. Before we even deal with children, we need to work as educators as parents on those toxic messages we receive as children. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes. And not only for the children that we have are connected with in our community, in our home, in our classrooms, but because we're human and we deserve that for ourselves. I don't want to carry those messages into my adulthood. No. Ew, ick. No, thank you. I'd rather talk to myself in a kinder way. That's what I want to hear. And have I rewritten all my toxic messages? No.
Don't carry it. Yeah, that's
say XYZ. Yeah. They're still in there.
That's for our own kind of overall health, emotional and spiritual and physical, that we do not carry and hold onto those messages our whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
But
allow
especially
that thought, let it go. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
There it is. Oh, there's that thought. There's that thought. And let it pass. And goodbye thought.
Okay. Wonderful.
There will be another one.
Yeah. So give us in the end of our podcast and of our time together a little more information about your academy, about your how you do that, and how you work. Is it a different approach when you work with parents and teachers, or you have mixed groups? How do you handle that?
Well, it depends. In my role as a coach, I see my role there is to be someone who listens and then asks for what is it that you want? Like, what's your biggest struggle and where do you want to be? Where's your A and where's your B? And I see my role in helping you and walk alongside you from A to B. My house is complete chaos. It's not peaceful. Everybody's yelling and screaming and slamming doors. And I want to have a peaceful home where we're talking respectfully to each other and we're following directions and we put laundry in the basket. That may be your big thing. So, okay, let's figure that out. So together we figure out what tools do we need to practice to get from here to here, right? And that's your tool as a teacher, as an educator, as a parent, as a family member, as a leader of children, how in whatever aspect that might look like. What tools do I need? Where am I lagging? Am I getting my needs met? Where can I learn? Because we can learn. There is always hope. There's always hope. So I see myself, that's a big piece of my work. And I also do teacher training and family education in classes, like my Inspired by the Neighborhood class. I have a class about positive phrasing, a class about managing body behavior. You name it, I got it. So on my website.
That's good.
Yeah. On my website, amywilliamsacademy.com, there's a whole list of the classes that I have available. So I'm available to book me for your family group or for your community or for your school team. I do a lot of that internationally.
And you do it online and in person?
I do. I'm doing something soon with Montessori Institute Prague, and I'm not traveling to the Czech Republic this time.
But maybe one day,
this.
Wonderful.
So they see my client, and this.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, Amy, we enjoyed it. Scott, we just truly enjoyed it, don't you think?
Absolutely, yeah,
absolutely. And so many interesting ideas, connections. Also, the topic, flip the script, and it seems easy. Just simply how flip it. But it will take effort. It won't happen in an hour. But at the same time, we have your website. People can see that and then connecting with you. And you take it from there. So from point A to point B. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We wish you the best. We wish you the best. And maybe one day we will see you again on our podcast.
Part 2. Let's talk about Fredish.
All right. Absolutely. That's very true. And let me show. Yes, that I will just show it right away on our website. So hit this Fredish 9 points, right? And Scott shared this video with us. Let me show you where they can read about it. But that could be a great topic, Fredish, right? So how to talk and using the simple phrases from the such loved not movie, right? It's a movie. So this is what it is. Did I put it in the right place? I did not put it in the right place. So let me put it on the screen. So I will put a website here that people can see before we say goodbye. So here it is. Yep.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a delight.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so this is the special language, Fredish.
Okay, then.
Thank you, Scott, for
Thank
sharing
you,
that.
Amy.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. Okay, have a wonderful day, and we will see you one day, I hope, to talk about Fredish language.
Sounds like a great plan.
That's good.
Bye.
Bye now.